welcoming, Mercedes. So good to see you again.
Thank you so much. It's really good to be here again. And
Yeah,
I'm very happy to be talking about this because I think it's a very important thing that a lot of people are dealing with on many different levels right now.
yeah, it really is. And thank you for your courage, your bravery, and your vulnerability to share such an emotional topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my first question is, yeah, your cancer story. I'd love to hear your personal cancer story.
All right. Well, I am one of those people with a very strong family history of cancer. Many people in my direct family, have dealt with cancer, had cancer. And 15 years ago, I took the test to see if I had the genetic mutation called BRCA1 or 2 that predisposes people to cancer. Um, this was popularized a number of years ago, or I don't know if popularized is the right word, but by Angelina Jolie, who had that test and was very open and very public about it, which I thought was wonderful because it helped a lot of people to learn and become familiar with something. And her doing that, I think, helped release a lot of shame that people feel around cancer. And specifically, that genetic mutation is linked to breast cancer and ovarian cancer. And for women, this is very sexually oriented also. So it can be very tied up with shame around this is, body parts that many women have shame about to begin with, that it can feel shameful to have cancer if you did something wrong or something like that. So I was very pleased that she did that. Anyway, I got tested and tested positive and knew that I had that. And right away, doctors started recommending that I have preventive surgery to have mastectomy, have my breasts removed, have what's called an oophorectomy, have my ovaries removed. And my very clear guidance was no, that was not right for me. And so I just was monitored, and over the years, many, many times had these surgeries, strongly recommended to me, given my family history, given my test situation. And then in 2019, all of a sudden, my guidance said, it's time now. You should have the ovarian surgery. And I was like, okay. So I scheduled it for the fall of 2019. And then I ended up needing 4 surgeries that summer and fall. And I was exhausted. And I thought, I really don't want to undergo another surgery right now. So I postponed it till the spring. So I had the surgery in March of this year, 2020. And I had a wonderful gynecological oncologist who did the surgery, wonderful woman. And she said, at this point, because you have gone so long with the surgery and you have no symptoms of any cancer, your tests all look very wonderful. She said, it's not clear to me that this is really necessary. You may have just, passed that point and you may not need this. And I checked in with my guidance and my guidance said, no, you should get the surgery. So I did. I ended up getting a full hysterectomy and they found cancer. They found advanced cancer, even though I had no symptoms, even though my tests were not showing it. I had advanced cancer. And so it was my guidance that had told me that I should do this. And then right afterwards, my guidance was crystal clear that I should go do chemotherapy. And then my gynecological oncologist immediately, right up front, told me that she recommended the chemotherapy and that afterwards she recommended a maintenance therapy, which was also a very strong chemo drug. And And my guidance said I should do that too. And to put this in context, I am a person who's lived supernaturally my whole life. Not supernaturally like the supernatural, although that too. But I mean, I've lived a very natural alternative lifestyle, have always preferred alternative healing modalities. And, if there's any way I could do things naturally, lived a very natural lifestyle, very organic, all these things. So for me to get this guidance that right now you need to do chemotherapy and then you need to follow up with this heavy duty drug was like, whoa, so different. And it never wavered. That was absolutely my guidance. So I did. I went right into chemotherapy, 4.5 months, which was shockingly horrible. Just, I couldn't imagine how horrible it was. I felt like at the worst, I was teetering on the brink of death. It was so difficult, but I made it through. Not only that, but I got diagnosed right when the whole lockdown happened with the COVID virus. So I couldn't have anyone with me. I live alone. I couldn't have anyone with me. And so I went through chemotherapy in complete isolation by myself. I couldn't even have anyone go with me to the cancer center when I got my infusions or anything. They were just being super careful because chemotherapy greatly injures your immune system, and your white blood cell count goes very low, among many other things that happen. And so we were amongst the most vulnerable to, besides having cancer, the fact that we were undergoing chemotherapy at that time, we were extremely vulnerable risk-wise to the virus. So I was going through all this. And then that ended in July of this year. And the end of July, I had a month for beginning to regain my strength. And then I went on the maintenance medication, which is also very challenging. It has side effects and all sorts of things with it. And I'm currently in the initial 3 months of that. And by the end of the year, that 3 months will be complete. And things are looking very good, that I'm making a very good adjustment. And my side effects are very gradually but persistently diminishing and going away. So I am feeling very hopeful at this point that I'm going to tolerate this maintenance therapy well. And I'm also doing many, many, many other natural things to support my healing. And part of my guidance that I got this year was, look at this year as a healing retreat. Just give it over. This is what you're doing this year. And I stopped channeling while I was going through chemotherapy, because I only channel when I feel very strong, physically and psychically, because I don't want to open myself to any psychic energies that I'm not specifically inviting in. So I'm very careful about that. So I didn't want to do any channeling while I was in chemotherapy. But what I did do, which was absolutely wonderful, was I had a book that I was underway with, preparing my next book, preparing the manuscript. So I worked on that the entire time. And I think that was part of what got me through, is thank you, Spirit. Thank you, God, that I had that to work on. And it was such a gift to me. And I went back to channeling about a month ago, and I am so happy to be doing that again. And I feel strong enough now that I feel like it's safe for me to do that. And that's a great blessing.
Oh, that's good. That's wonderful to hear. I was also really curious about your spiritual journey throughout the process, because a lot, I know particular people that are going through cancer and they're spiritual, and they don't understand why this has happened to them. They've done all the right things, like, they've eaten all the right foods, they've been healthy, they've done their yoga, they've done this, they've done that, and yet it still happens, and they in some ways feel like they have failed.
Right.
And so,
Right.
yeah, I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that, those emotions.
Yeah, thank you. This is part of the shame that people feel with cancer is they feel like they're to blame. They've done something that caused the cancer. And this is a very tricky thing. And I feel like this is a very tricky thing in our spiritual world altogether, because many people, especially in what I call the New Age spiritual world, have this very strong belief that we create our reality.
That's what I was
And
going to say is I think it's linked to the law of attraction work.
that's right. And that has a dark underbelly that can be used to blame yourself or to blame others. And to me, that is a real spiritual trap. I first became aware of this ever years and years ago. I read a book by Ken Wilber called Grace and Grit. Ken Wilber is a spiritual teacher in the United States. And it was about his marriage to a woman. And 2 weeks after they got married, they found out she had breast cancer. And she only lived for 2 years. And it's the story of their 2-year beautiful love story. But he talked about this very strongly, that they were shocked by how many people talked to them about, why did she bring this on? Why did she create this in her life? And she should fix it, and that it was so uncompassionate. And I'd never been aware before that, but that is something that I think people need to be very conscious of. And you can receive it from others, and you can also give it to yourself, where you're beating yourself up for, what have I done wrong?
I've done it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the first thing about that is that I believe we do create everything in our life, but not in the way a lot of people think about, and not in the way I think even people think about karma and those kinds of things. I think it's at the level of soul contract, and that all of the important things that occur in our life, we set up before we incarnated as part of our soul contract, as part of what would help us to learn our lessons in this life. And it's not a punishment. It's not a failure by any means. It's an opportunity for growth in some area that our soul wanted to grow in. And so I think understanding that is so important, and getting beyond any blame or feeling of right wrongness, and also really getting to the place that, especially in relationship to others, we never understand another person's spiritual journey. The way that it looks on the outside may have absolutely nothing to do with what's really going on. And I think that's so important too, that place of not knowingness. So to me, I never went there. I never went into blaming myself, but I've encountered so many people who do, and it's very, very sad to me. But I definitely believe that I created this. And so to me, it's my journey, part of my spiritual journey with cancer is why? Why did I invite this in? And what am I wanting to learn and to grow from this experience? And I've encountered another, a medical doctor who was doing cancer research, and it changed him. His name is Zach Bush, and he talks now about health and well-being, and partly about cancer. And somebody suggested his videos, and I watched them, and he said something that I absolutely loved. He said that from his research, he really believes this, that our body is a community. It's completely set up to work together and, to function as one being. And something happens with cancer and the initial cancer cells that then continue to grow, where they get separated. They somehow get ostracized. They get divorced from this community of our being. And his description of it is that cancer cells are the loneliest cells in our body because we are communal beings. We are meant to be this way, and they have suddenly somehow lost their ability to be connected. And so now they're desperately trying to survive. And their way of surviving is attacking the healthy cells to give them what they need to survive.
Wow.
But that is such a different way of looking at it from another way that I have seen a lot of people approach cancer, which is this: cancer's the enemy, and we have to fight. We're cancer warriors. And I've even seen, and this is really painful to me, I'm on many groups, that are involved with cancer because it's a wonderful way of learning. You get so much information from other people's experiences and other people's journeys. But I've also seen I have to really filter because you get a lot of other stuff too. And partly what I see a lot of people is they call cancer the beast. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, and this is in my type of cancer that I have is ovarian cancer. And so sometimes they call it he, which really disturbs me because this is all women. And to me, cancer is not the enemy. Cancer is not a beast. Cancer is not a he. Cancer is me. Cancer is a part of my body that has gotten very wounded somehow and separated from the wholeness of me. And so it's needing healing. It's needing love. Yeah. And so that has been my primary spiritual journey, is what is this? What's it trying to teach me? What are my lessons? What is the healing that I need? What is the part of me that's not getting enough love, that needs more love? And I'm still in the midst of it. I am not anywhere near clear. I feel I've definitely done a lot of work, and I feel like I've had breakthroughs and I've understood things. And for me, because it's ovarian cancer, I feel like it has everything to do with the second chakra. And I look at second chakra issues as sexuality, emotion, and relationship. Those are the three primary, which of course a lot of people have challenges with those three areas. And I feel like I've done tons of work there and all of that, but I feel like there's more. There's more that I'm not seeing, and that this is helping me to see. And I'm working with a wonderful therapist. I got a therapist very shortly after I got diagnosed and started chemotherapy. And that was one of the best things I did. Back then I thought, I don't even know why I need a therapist, but I think it's a good idea. It was being offered to me and I thought, sure, that sounds like a gift. And wow, it has helped me in so many ways to navigate so many different parts. I highly recommend everyone getting professional help in whatever way you can, whatever resources are available to you. And she has been a gold mine to me and is walking me through in a very professional, profound way this journey of going as deep as we can with what are my gifts, what are my lessons, what are my growth. And also I want to say that cancer is a huge, deep dive into facing death. I'm a person who I always thought I was really comfortable with death. I have supported people in the dying process. I've been with people when they've died. I've done vigils and led vigils for people after they've died. I've done so much work, and I'm very, very comfortable with that. And I feel like that's one of my gifts and one of my services. And thought, I don't have issues around dying. But when I got diagnosed with cancer, and all of a sudden I had no idea if I was going to, die tomorrow. I don't know. It became real in this whole new way. There were new levels that I needed to go through relative to facing fear of death. And this is another pet peeve of mine that I think for some of us, there's an idea in the spiritual world, and especially I think it shows up in the New Age spiritual world, that if we're really spiritual, we shouldn't be afraid. We shouldn't experience fear. And there's kind of this idea out there that, there's only two choices, love or fear. So again, it kind of goes back to that failure thing. If you're feeling fear, you failed because you're not feeling love. And I do not agree with this at all. And my guidance from Mary Magdalene really doesn't agree with this either. That fear is part of our human nature. And it's there to help us. Again, it's not our enemy. It's not trying to get us or to somehow, hurt us, destabilize us. It's there to help us. It's information showing us something that we're needing. And so this is something else I think is really important for people to know, that it's normal and healthy to feel fear. It's part of our human experience.
Yeah.
I remember.
I love that. I love that. I just had this image of a tiger running up to someone, and then them going, I need to just love the tiger. Love the tiger. And the tiger just like eats them.
Right.
Right. It's like the fear is there for a reason.
It's there for a reason. Absolutely. And make use of it. And fundamentally, fear is saying no.
Yeah.
That's it's like, no. And if you're in chronic fear, that's a different thing. And that's something else to look at. But still, it's not because you're bad or it's wrong. It's trying to help you. Again, show you, what do you need? What do you need to give yourself that you're not giving yourself right now? So for me, there was especially a period of time where I felt like I was really facing death. I had this feeling that death was right at my side, and it had an image. It was black. It wasn't exactly physical. It was very, ephemeral, but it was a little bit like the Grim Reaper, which I had always taken as just a symbol, not something real. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, this seems really real. I'm living with it. And eventually I faced it and embraced it, which is exactly what Mary Magdalene says to do. And then I everything sort of just relaxed, and I sort of forgot about it. And I went to sleep that night, and I had an ecstatic dream that had many parts that I remembered, which is unusual for me because I'm a person who often doesn't remember my dreams, but I remembered every part of this dream. And it was very symbolic, but I felt like it was very much about me connecting with the other side, the people who were waiting for me on the other side. There was a message: we're having a big party for you, don't be late. And some of the people who have already died, who are very special to me, were there, and I could feel their love of me and their holding of me. And then it went to another part of the dream where I was with a friend of mine who is a Tantra teacher, and that's something I've also done in the past, is taught Tantra. And I remember the dream ended where somebody said something, and we just looked at each other and we totally cracked up. We were laughing so hysterically, I thought I was going to wet my pants. And the message was, isn't this life funny? Isn't this just the biggest joke? And it totally changed my whole experience of fear. It just melted, dissolved. But it was like I had to go through that step of opening to it, accepting it, and inviting in its gifts. So that has definitely been part of my spiritual journey.
I love that. I love that journey so much. And, they say that humor is so healing as well. Yeah. And my chakra teacher, he helps people heal from cancer. And one of the medicine that he, offers is just be happy, watch funny movies, laugh, like that boost the immune system. So that's one of the things he recommends. So I love that you had this dream and then there was this laughter that came, but it feels like that was able to come when you actually had embraced the
Exactly.
the dark emotions that were there. So
Yes.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
really powerful. And that's a very different experience than what a lot of people in the spiritual community are doing is spiritual bypassing.
Yes, and this is one of the things that I definitely have encountered is that you know, people who care about me want to do something to help me. And that's our natural, human response to people we love. We want to help them. And so a lot of what people have assumed their job is to cheer me up. And when I was going through hard times where I was afraid, where I was depressed, where I felt like giving up in despair, where I just felt so horrible, it wasn't even emotional, it was just physical. I felt like I was dying. And people wanted to cheer me up. And that was so much the wrong thing to do. It didn't work because what it did was it made me, first of all, feel lonely, like they couldn't understand or they didn't want to be with what was going on with me. And they were trying to change it, fix it. And then I felt like I had to caretake them because I felt fundamentally they were uncomfortable with the level of rawness and pain and heaviness that I was dealing with. And that in their discomfort, they were trying to lift me up to some place that was more comfortable for them.
Wow.
And so besides me feeling wretched, I felt like then I had to take care of them. And I didn't have the energy to do it. I just couldn't do it. I was so low. And what I found, which I knew before, but I found it even more going through all this, was what I needed was people who could be with me and not try to change me, fix me, anything. Just be with me and trust me. And, either just reflect back what was going on. Sounds like you're really having a horrible day. That sounds awful. Oh, that sounds so painful. Those kinds of things really helped me. And it helped tap into my natural resources to find my way through. And, or for people just to, how are you doing? I don't even know what to say, but how are you doing? I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. I care about you. What's going on? And just making space for me to share and be with someone else. And this goes back to that thing that what Zach Bush said about cancers being the loneliest cells in the body. I felt like as someone going through cancer, I was incredibly lonely, and especially going through it in the midst of COVID. Oh my gosh. And I just so craved someone to be with me in the experience, just so I wasn't alone in it. And I feel like that's one of the greatest gifts we give to people. And if people understood that, it would really help them to know how to support someone you love who's going through this.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. You've just answered it. What would you say to people that have loved ones that have cancer? Yeah, is there anything else that you would like to say to that?
Well, I know for myself, in the past, I had a dear friend who was going through cancer years ago, and I was afraid. It brought up my fear. And I also felt like I have no idea what she's going through. I don't know how to relate to her. And I avoided her. And when I got cancer, I called her up and apologized. I said, I am so sorry. I just had no idea how to be with you. And in my fear, I just stayed away. And I still get that from people. Like, people will say, oh, I didn't want to call because I didn't want to bother you. And I'm like, if it's not a good time, I won't answer the phone. I can take care of myself. And please call, please do. So I just want to affirm to people, yes, you might feel afraid, and you can share that with the person. This brought up my fear. I imagine you're feeling so much fear, and I can't even imagine, because, I'm feeling fear just knowing that you have cancer. The more you can share at that real level, the more it really supports people. And another thing is, I highly recommend, don't say, well, if you need anything, call on me. If someone is going through something as horrible as cancer, you don't have the energy to call on someone. When you are going through a hard time, you're just marshaling all your resources to survive. And thinking about calling on someone is so instead, what I recommend is, check up on the person regularly, or better yet, make a regular time to connect. How about if I call you every Monday afternoon? My sister, God bless her soul, she called me every day. She wanted to be with me and she couldn't. And so what she did instead, she called me every single day, sometimes more than once a day, depending on what was going on. And it meant so much to me. So that is a great thing to do, but take the initiative. Don't wait. Don't ask the person who's going through a hard time to take the initiative, because again, that's just putting more on their plate when they're already overwhelmed. Yeah. And the other thing that I did that really, really helped me, and this is part of it being a cancer journey, a spiritual journey. When I was getting ready to begin the chemotherapy, I set up a schedule with my most spiritual loved ones and friends, so that every day I would have someone meditate with me. Because I know myself well enough to know that when I am sick or compromised physically, it's hard for me to meditate. The energy just isn't there. And I thought, this is going to be a hard time for me to maintain my spiritual practice, which I'm going to need more than ever. And so I set that up to support myself. And boy, that was one of the best things I did. But what was interesting was I got feedback from all the people. So these people, all once a week, everybody had a scheduled time, and they would call me and we meditated together. What I found out was this was some of the most wonderful connecting I've ever had in my life. Wow. And the people I was doing with gave me the feedback that they were experiencing the same thing. And we both said, why have we waited to do this until you had cancer? and they all said, I don't want to stop. Let's not stop. So we are still continuing to this day. Yeah. It's marvelous. It's so wonderful. And what happened was, after I got out of the really extreme, place where I was struggling so much and my energy started to return, very organically, the focus of the meditation started to change. And instead of it being all about me and my healing and helping me, I had energy now, and I just very naturally wanted to help others. And it changed to helping the other person, meditations for the world, all sorts of things, but just as strong and powerful and so beautiful. Yeah. So that's been a really wonderful thing too.
So that was one of my questions too, is what would you recommend for someone that is going through cancer? So that's a great recommendation of bringing that support.
Yes. And then back to cancer being a spiritual journey. I think there's tons of information about the ways to support yourself at the physical level. Whether you're choosing to go the more conventional route of, the conventional approaches to cancer or alternative healing, natural healing, all those sorts of things. There's lots of information out there. Oh, and this is something else I want to say to people who know someone with cancer. When you hear someone has cancer, really practice being very conscious of not giving unsolicited advice.
Thank you.
Person going through cancer is overwhelmed with 10 bazillion options that are out there. And then on top of it, people telling you, oh, well, here's what you should do. You should do this, you should do that. Who, it may or may not have anything to do with you. But it's overwhelming for the person, and it's not respectful. If someone asks you for what you recommend, that's a whole different thing. If somebody comes to you in a professional relationship, like my therapist who I've gone to, that's a professional relationship. I'm asking her for that kind of help. But people who just, it's a casual thing or a friendship thing, I really, really want to emphasize, don't go there. Or if you feel it really strongly, ask. Say, I know about a healing modality that's, coming up for me. I'm wondering if you'd like to hear about it. Or even a bigger one, I'm getting some guidance about your cancer. Is this something you would like to hear? And then listen to the person's response. If they say no, respect it. And don't take it personally. It may or may not have anything to do with you, but it has everything to do with them. And if you really authentically want to help the person, respect them and respect their free will and their boundaries.
Yeah, that's a really big one. Thank you for bringing that one up. I had a friend that had cancer, and I so badly wanted to help her. And because I'm a Miss-Fix-It, want to help everyone, want to save the world, And she just did not want to meet up with me. And I pushed it a little bit, but I had to respect her boundaries, that she was just not in the space to meet up with me. And, I didn't want to be a bully, but I really wanted to help her because I felt like I could, but she didn't want it. And then she died. And it was really hard for me. It was really, and I've always felt very mixed about that. I've always felt like maybe I should have just turned up on the front door, like somehow maybe I could have made a difference, but, I chose to respect her boundaries. But then when she was gone, that was it, so.
That's part of the spiritual journey. Everyone who's involved is touched in some way. Yeah. So from my point of view, that's a very challenging and deep place to surrender to God. Yeah. To turn the loved one over to God and to bless them in a way that is not invasive of their space, to bless them, in your space through your meditation, through, your angels to their angels, your higher self to their higher self. There are ways that we can always connect and bless without transgressing someone's choice.
Yeah, that's right. And, the higher part of my being says it was meant to be. That's how it was meant to be, because that's what is. But I have noticed that I will be that person that jumps in and tries to help, and it's almost like an overcompensation for that. And I've just put that together as you were sharing. So that's really interesting. Yeah. Wow. I didn't know that this was going to be so emotional.
Cancer is profound, and the spiritual lessons are profound for all of us who are touched in any way. It really is. So thank you for your vulnerability.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your
Yeah.
vulnerability and sharing your story. It's incredible. I love the last piece about respecting boundaries because it really is important to acknowledge where someone's at and
Yeah.
their own process and their own journey.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I want to share this story that's so beautiful to me. When I was very early, uh, after I'd had my surgery, and I think before I started chemotherapy, and it was early in the COVID times, I went into a store, and it was back when you couldn't get a mask, where masks were, everybody was buying them, and everybody was out, all the suppliers, and you couldn't get a mask. And so I went into a store, and somebody had a mask, and I went up to them to ask them where they got it so that I could get a mask. And they said, "Oh, I'm a cancer patient. I got this from my cancer center." And I said, "I'm a cancer patient too." And this was a man, a beautiful young man who was probably in his 30s or something. And he just started talking to me. And I felt like this was an angel who had come to help me at the very beginning of my journey. And it was like his heart opened up, and he just started sharing and sharing. And it was so beautiful. He ended up sending me a box of masks, all sorts of things
Oh,
that was from his personal supply. He was sharing many of his, neither of us knowing what was going to happen, if we would be able to get these in the future. But he said something to me that was life changing. He said, "And just hold on to God." He said, "Reach out and take God's hand and never let go. That's the most important thing." And that image has stuck with me and is so strong for me. And I feel like at the end of the day, I have my personal lessons and my personal healing and my personal journey about why I have cancer and what I need to personally heal at the soul level. But underlying it all, it's always about getting closer to God. And that my journey has done that for me. It showed me that I can do that under the most difficult circumstances, and that the most difficult circumstances can actually help me to become stronger in holding on to God and trusting God to lead me wherever I need to be led.
I love that. I love that because in that moment of death, and facing death, we can either go towards or we can pull away.
That's right. And actually, that's true in every single moment. It becomes crystal clear when you're facing death. But the truth is, it's our reality every single moment. And that's what it is to live a spiritual life from my point of view.
Yeah. And I think it's important, and you touched upon this earlier, that when we have the moments that we do pull away, just to be compassionate, that's part of the process too, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then if we choose to look at why did we do that? And it always comes out of a fundamentally some part of ourself that's needing something. And then we can look at how we can give that to ourselves in a way that we won't need to pull away in the future. Give it to ourselves in a different way.
So when you're saying selves, I'm thinking cells. What you just said.
All of us.
The cells, how you said the cancer or the parts that are away from the tribe of the community that have pulled away. Like, how can we? Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's so poetic.
Yeah.
I love that. You could write a whole book about that. Are you going to do that?
I have been asked to do this several times. I may get to it. I have 2 books, that are in the pipeline before that. So we'll see how far I get in this journey.
I think it would be a great service to humanity. That would be a really good one. Yeah. It's a big topic. It's an emotional topic. And I feel it's not one that's been explored enough or talked about enough. So
Right.
thank you so
And
much.
it's obviously up for so many of us, whether we're dealing with our own cancer journey or someone we know and love, because there's almost no one who hasn't been touched by cancer in some way or other.
I know my grandmother had cancer. She had to have her breast removed, which was a very scary thing for me going through puberty and growing breasts to witness my grandmother, because she had double D, so she had really quite large breasts, and one had to be completely removed. And I remember being 12 and absolutely terrified of my boobs even growing, because of how horrific that whole journey was for her. Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to share? Like, actually, I have a question for my own personal.
Yeah.
I'm 46, and I did watch my grandmother, deal with cancer, battle cancer. What kind of advice could you give us, I guess, maybe to prepare? Because it is a genetic thing for me. And I find that I get really scared and I try to be really healthy, and I try to do what I can to prevent it. But it feels like it's almost like a shadow that sometimes follows me. And I'm certain a lot of people feel that way.
So I would say to embrace that shadow, open to it, ask it what it's wanting to help you with, what it's wanting to guide you toward, what it's wanting you to understand, what actions it's asking you to take. It's there for a purpose to help you and to open toward it. And it's not black and white. It's not an either or, like, oh, you can do that and then you don't have to do all this other stuff of living a healthy lifestyle and all that. I'm a believer in living a healthy lifestyle. I've always lived a healthy lifestyle. I'm living an uber healthy lifestyle since I got my cancer diagnosis. I don't know that that will save me. I don't know that that will prevent me having a recurrence, dying from cancer. I don't know. But to me, it's a wise choice, and it's another way of loving myself. I feel like it's all comes down to love. And those parts, like the shadow, they're scary to us. That part needs love too. It's the same thing of, are we going to separate and push it away and make it the enemy, avoid it? Or are we going to embrace it and heal whatever needs healing and love it?
I love that so much. I never thought of it that way. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
You are so welcome. Blessings to you and to everyone who watches this in the future, who's touched by cancer and who's on a spiritual journey, whatever form that takes. Many, many blessings.
Oh, many blessings. Thank you, Mercedes. That was absolutely beautiful and divine. Thank you.
You are so welcome.